Welcome to the show. This is Education in Our Community. I'm LORA SALL, and today's show is called Life Choices. I am honored to have with me my sister, Amira Cobbs-Hampton, and we are going to be talking about some of the life choices she has made that has worked in her favor as well as worked well with her family. And so welcome to the show, Amira.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Where are you from?
I am from Oakland, California.
Okay.
I am a product of a family of grandparents and 4 daughters.
Okay.
There are 2 grandchildren, myself, and I call him my brother.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm from.
Okay. And your family is really supportive of one another. So tell me a little bit about your family and a little more about your grandparents.
So my grandparents, they're like my parents.
Okay.
Everyone in my family, we're very a close-knit family. On any given day, you may see all of us together. What I like most about my family and what our family dynamic is that we get together all the time. You know, maybe if it's every day, every other day, and it's not a big celebration, it's just how we normally, our day-to-day interactions. What I like, or what I think is important about my family is that my grandfather, he was my source of transportation to every school I went to, from elementary, even earlier than that, to all the way into law school. My grandfather transported me there and transported me back. And my grandmother was very, she was my mother, but she was also a great friend. And she was good friends with a lot of my friends. We would come over to the house and spend time with her. She was my matron of honor in my wedding. So our family is very close, and we continue that. And we think that's very important to success and to making sure that the family stays together and it's close-knit.
Wow. Do you live near each other?
We all live in the same city.
Okay.
My older 2 aunts live with my grandparents.
Okay.
My grandmother is deceased.
Okay.
And my mom and my aunt, they live about 6 to 7 minutes from me.
Wow. That is wonderful.
I tell people all the time, I can't move away because that's my support system.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, you mentioned law school. Now, tell me about your education growing up, which schools you went to, and...
Okay, so for elementary school, I went to a school called Zion Lutheran. It was in Piedmont, Montclair area. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. After that, I went to Holy Names High School. From there, I attended UC Berkeley, and then I went to law school at Golden Gate University in San Francisco.
Wow.
And I'm actually still in school now. I'm going to be completing my master's in business administration. I have like 2 classes left.
Oh my goodness. And you also have a baby on the way.
I do. This is my husband and our second baby.
Okay.
It's a boy. We are very excited.
Whoa. And so you're a very busy lady.
We are.
And thank goodness for a family being so close. You have a lot of support systems in place.
A lot of support.
Okay.
I tell people all the time, like for example, my son, my mom and my aunts, because there's 3 of them, they take care of my son. There's one who buys all of his clothing. There's one who fixes his dinner. My mom and her twin sister are always at his school, dropping him off, picking him up, helping him with homework. And so we all work together. And people always ask me sometimes, well, you know, do you ever get jealous? Do you ever miss him? But that's how I was raised. When I was growing up, my grandfather took me to school, picked me up, and I did my homework at my grandparents' house.
Yes.
And there was an aunt who cooked dinner, or my grandmother cooked dinner, and there was an aunt who bought me my clothes, and we just all worked together.
Yes. Yeah. And that's old school.
It is, yes. And I like that.
Yes.
I really do like that.
Yeah.
You know?
And we need more of that.
We do.
Yeah.
We definitely need more of that.
Especially in California, when the cost of living in California is so great, there are more and more families having to live with each other.
That is true.
In order to save.
Yes.
And then with children, I live with my daughter and my grandson and her husband, and we're a close-knit family too. And so I can relate to how important that is.
It's extremely important.
Oh, yeah.
I tell people all the time, I wouldn't be the person I am today without all of them.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have all helped me in some kind of way.
It's truly a life choice, though.
It is. And at sometimes, I would get upset when I was growing up because you have all these people telling you what to do, right? You have all these different personalities.
Oh, yeah.
But when you look back on it, I mean, it was amazing. What
yeah.
they did, it was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I never had to worry about anything. There was always someone there to help me. And I have an older son, Dominic, and they do the exact same thing with him,
Yes.
And he knows them, not just knows of them, but he actually knows them.
Yes.
Right. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Now tell me how you got into your profession. What made you choose law?
So people have asked me that for a number of things. One, when I was a little girl, my mom will tell you, I really didn't like cartoons, but I would like to watch, the court. And so we would go down to the local courthouse and we would sit in the courtroom and watch court.
Wow.
I don't care if it was traffic court, I don't care if it was criminal court, civil court, we would watch court, That was one of the areas. Number two, I participated in a lot of different programs growing up. I remember one program I participated in was the summer youth program for Mayor Elihu Harris. Wow. And that was someone had talked about, it was like a law day, or they mentioned something about being a lawyer. I remember that distinctly. It was held by the lake. It was in one of the seminar rooms that one of my best friends and I went to. The third thing I got into law is because I have always liked to argue. And I know that's cliche, but that is so true. I've always liked the fight of it, or the leading up to it has always been one of my passions. And I knew that somehow I knew action took place in the courtroom. And so I definitely wanted to be a part of that.
Wow.
Now, when I was growing up, there were no lawyers, meaning there were lawyers, but not in my immediate family, not the people that I was around. But I did have one friend who I met, I think in the 4th grade, whose father was a lawyer, and whose father was, at some point, a deputy public defender. And he would always, when I would go over her house, because we became very close friends, he would sit down and talk to me about it, or he would mention about his day, just in passing. And sometimes we were at her house, there would be judges there, or there would be other attorneys there. And so all of that together helped me, get into the legal field. I knew at a very early age, and my family stressed to me at a very early age, that you pick your profession, you go towards your goal, and they would do whatever to help.
Wow.
My grandfather's motto is, anybody trying to do well, I have no problem with helping them.
Wow.
And so that's what they did.
That is truly a blessing.
It is.
Because, so often people don't know what profession they want to go into. And then to have chosen one at a young age and then have that support to get you there, that is wonderful.
It is. And people always ask me, like my close friends who've known me since childhood have always said, well, we already knew what you were going to be. Because I talked about it.
Wow.
Like all the time. That was not something that was kept a secret.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Wow. Now, since you've been here, we talked about what your son wanted to do and wants to do once he gets older.
Yes.
Go ahead and share that conversation and how that conversation came about and what you are doing now to support him in getting where he wants to go.
So my son told my husband and I very early on that he wanted to be a doctor. He's 6 years old. And so I only do what I know to do, right, is to support him, to encourage him. And so we put him in a lot of science programs. We explain to him a lot of medical terminology. My grandfather, who's ill now, my son, goes to the hospital, takes care of him. When he's home, he assists with putting on the stethoscope, and then he, does the heart palpitations or pats. We just try to include him. and anything that, is medical related. And there's also like a lot of, there was one thing I saw on the internet one time, a group of African American men who had graduated from Harvard Medical School.
Yes.
And they had a profound statement underneath it. They said that they tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds. And it was really, I thought it was profound because here it was a group of all these African-American men, and sometimes who people may have counted out. And, I brought it to my son's attention. I said, see, look at them. They're doing their dream. They're going forward. You have to just continue to do for it. And people say, well, don't put too much pressure on him. And I'm not putting any pressure on him. I want him to be an asset to the community. So later on he changes and he doesn't want to be a doctor, that's fine. But as long as he's an asset to the community from which he comes from. And that's perfect. That's our goal.
That is profound.
Thank you.
That's profound. I worked one time with a gentleman who was Vietnamese, and he had 5 children, he and his wife. And at birth, they knew what each of their children were going to, the path that they were going to go on. Now, the parents decided that for them, but they also supported them in getting to that. And as adults, each one was a doctor, one was a businessman, one was a dentist, and, on down the line. But he told me from birth, they decided what each one of their children would do.
I think that is so important. I think it's just so important to show your child, what type of expectations you have of them and what you believe in them, that they can succeed. And I think that if you support, I think support is really big to me. Oftentimes I think we don't support like we should.
Yes.
Whether it's financial, physical, or emotional. I think all of that's important in order to help someone get to the place where they need to be.
Now that you've been an attorney for a while, okay, a public defender at that, what challenges have you run into, and did you run into any surprises that made you second guess your choice in the beginning?
I would say that I did have challenges, but in regards to second guessing, I didn't second guess. I mean, if I did, it may have been for a moment. Passing the California bar exam was very difficult, and that was a trying time. I'm sure many people have heard of, the stories. But I think I never second guessed because, I had all these people. If I had a down day, if I had something where I felt like, it wasn't going my way, or if I was down, that particular day, I had many people to call on, whether it was my family or my close friends, and they would always give me the support.
Wow.
They would always tell me that I could do it. They believed in me. And that's, that's the key. And so there was no other, option, meaning I knew I would get back up again, I always had this, I always think about it, whenever I get down or something, there's a life challenge. I had this bar tutor once, and I can't remember her name. She tutored me for the California bar exam. But she had this saying that she said to me, and she said, okay, what are you gonna do, cry about it, or are you gonna do something about it? Right? And it makes sense. You face challenges like that, and I tell myself, what are you gonna do, cry about it, or are you gonna basically put yourself in action in order to face the challenge, solve the challenge, and move past it?
Wow.
Right, and so that's the way I look at it. Now, when I did first become a lawyer, and I remember I got one of my first permanent jobs where I am currently now as a public defender, it was very difficult because we do have a difficult caseload.
Okay.
But it was more of just managing and making sure that I'm giving everyone the type of service, because it is a form of service that we do that they deserve. And so I never second guessed in terms of what exactly I wanted to do.
Now, what made you choose public defender versus prosecutor? Or was that a conscious choice?
I would have to say that there's a couple of things. One, whenever I think of choices that I've made or decisions, I think things happen in life that kind of put you on the track where you need to be. I chose, why I'm in the position I am now is because I come from a community where you see a lot of people who feel like the criminal justice systems or the courts is like a daunting process. You know, that they don't have a voice and they need to be heard. And I know this may sound cliche, but I feel like one of the things that I do as a deputy public defender is I'm a voice for people who may feel like they don't have a voice.
Wow.
Now, when you come from the community that I came from, and I say that because, you know, even though I was surrounded by family and my mom and her sisters and my grandmother, and they sheltered me to a certain extent, I was able to see some of the things or hear stories about people in my community who just didn't understand it, right? Who didn't understand the process or didn't understand their rights. And so part of that gave me a sense of empowerment, you know, in order to be able to help others. And when I first decided to become a public defender, one of the mentors told me, well, why don't you do an internship at the district attorney's office to see, you know, just to make sure that you understand both sides, right? You want to see exactly what it is that, you know, the other side is doing to compare to what you're doing. And I did do that internship and I did complete it. And I knew after completing that, I definitely wanted to be a public defender. I like helping people. It is a form of service that we give. And I think that the people, meaning the public defenders that I work with, the attorneys that I work with, that I all met, we take that very seriously. We are there to help people. We are there to make sure that that justice is done. You know, and I think that's very important.
That's awesome. Well, what about all of these stories that you hear about public defenders only plea bargaining and causing people to do time because they don't know the case. They don't take the time to learn about the case because they're so overloaded.
You know, and I have heard those stories, and that has not been my experience at all. I've worked in several offices, meaning, you know, volunteered or done internships before getting my permanent position, and I haven't seen that. I think that sometimes public defenders do get a bad reputation. But I think if you were to pull people one-on-one who are represented by public defenders or who have been represented by public defenders, I think they would say differently. I think that the public defenders that I've met, whether I have worked underneath them as an intern or law clerk or working beside them now, we work hard. And we work beyond the hours that is required or that is allotted for us, meaning a 40-hour work week. And when you're a public defender, when you go home, it just doesn't stop. You know, the job doesn't stop. Even if you're not, you know, working on your case actually that day, you may be driving your car, thinking about a client or thinking about a new strategy to work on. And I think that public defenders do sometimes get a bad reputation, but I think that more often than not, people will have great things to say about their experience with the public defender.
Now, what would you say to the community? This is an opportunity for you to get the word out to people about life choices and what choices we have in our communities now and how they can make a difference.
What I would say, and I think this is really important, I'm here today not because of something that I did. You know, I'm here because of my family. They lifted me and pushed me forward. And I think that's really important. I don't think that I would have been here today if it weren't for them. I could have been somewhere else doing something totally different, but because of my family and because of my church family, I should tell you a little bit about that. I want to tell the community that it's important to make sure that we support those who are trying to move forward. And I think that if we support our youth, you never know what they'll become. You know, I mean, when you look at them, this is our future, and we have to invest in our future. And I want to make sure that it's my duty to invest not only in my son and my future son's future, but any other kids that I meet, you know, that have come along my path. I want to make sure that I push them forward. Is there something that I can do to help them? Okay. One other thing I do want to mention about where I am today, I think also important is that I forgot to tell you is that I grew up in the church. And my church family was amazing. And a lot of the times, people overlook that. because I think about my pastor, Reverend Ray Williams. He did a lot of pushing me forward. And at the time, as a child, you don't realize that. But, whether it was public speaking in the church, whether it was me over the vacation Bible school, all of this happened before I went to college. Whether it was us, putting on some type of program for the afternoon, all of that helps, grow someone. And it helps you to develop skills that not necessarily you would get in a school setting.
Yes.
And so I think I definitely wanted to mention that.
Oh, good for you. Now that you have been a public defender, for how long?
I think almost 8 years.
Wow. And with all that's been going on in our communities nationwide, is there more you can say to the community about supporting those of us who are returning to the communities from jail and the impact that jail has on families and how families and communities can be supportive of the inmate as well as of those families who have been left behind?
I definitely do think that's important. I think, first of all, in regards to the inmate you stated who is returning to the community, I think that they should offer an opportunity for the inmate or someone who has been rehabilitated coming out, because people do make bad choices, and that doesn't mean they can't grow from them. But to allow them to grow from that experience, and there's a lot that they can offer. I think that's important. I think that a lot of that also can help with our youth, being able to speak to these individuals. In my family, I've had individuals who, in my legal career, who have actually served time in custody, who have put me ahead of others in my career because they basically were real life examples for me. Does that make sense? Like when I was transferred into a felony assignment, one of my cousins was able to give me examples of her experiences, and that was really important for me, and it helped me actually understand, the transition from a misdemeanor attorney to a felony attorney. In regards to the community, I think that we should definitely give them support, and provide them with the resources, whether they need rehabilitation, whether they need a source of employment. I think that all of that is important. And I think that a lot of people, if they have the right resources, and can definitely be assets to society.
Would you, as an attorney, classify anyone as a lost cause?
No, never. No, I could never say that that's a lost cause, because there are plenty of people who could have counted me as a lost cause. I'm no different or no better than anyone else.
Yes.
That's what but because of the support and guidance that I had, I'm where I am today. So I would never say that. Someone could label my son as a lost cause, but I would never say that anyone was a lost cause. That would be completely against who I am and why I'm even a public defender.
Good for you. Good for you. And so life choices matter.
Life choices do matter. Life choices are important. I think life choices really determine what you will become in the future.
Yes. Yes. And then also, do you know of, or would you recommend ways in which someone can lean towards getting their families more involved with their children, with community, with their church, with other people who are trying to either change their lives or who have found that their life choices when they were younger were not the best, and now they want to do something different with their life? What would you recommend to people who want to make a change?
I think it starts at, small steps, meaning getting family involvement, making sure your family is close-knit. And there are actually people, and I told others this, in the community who are willing to do that, are willing to be mentors to young people and older people who want to make different life choices. I think reaching out and showing yourself that you are really ready to do things like that. I think also this is one of my biggest things, I think. Going to local community organizations, getting involved is very important. And from there on, you will be able to meet other individuals who are willing to assist you.
Now, you have a very close-knit, immediate family. Your husband, your son, the baby on the way. How did your husband handle marrying into such a close-knit family?
I think for my husband, it's definitely been a transition for him. Sometimes he always tells me, it's a joke that we have, why do you keep calling your mom so much? Like I call her every morning, but I think it's definitely different for him. But now, since we've been married for almost 12 years, and I think he definitely understands and is more willing to accept the family. Oftentimes, my husband will go over to my grandparents' house and spend time with them as well.
That's nice. That is really nice. And you know, like I said, that's old school. That's the way, particularly in the African American community, our families who were transitioning from the South back in the 50s and the 60s, they did everything under the sun to try to keep the family connected.
They did.
And now with this technology and information highway and people being on their cell phones rather than telephone calling each other so you could hear a voice, things are changing. But in spite of that, I think if we take some of your suggestions and encourage people to stay close to their families, spend time with family, have regular dinners together, even if it means to come together once a month or twice a month. It is really important that we do what we can to make sure those life choices include family, particularly our young ones,
I think
our
that's very important.
babies, our children, you know.
That is true.
And then we can change some of what's happening right now. You know, anytime you see a little baby or a young child on a cell phone, okay, in elementary school, texting somebody, then that's teaching that child about that technology, but are you spending that time teaching them about communicating separate from that cell phone? And so I love hearing your story. I love hearing how you have had that support all of your life, and now your son has had that kind of
That's right.
support and will continue to have that support all of his life. And as our ancestors, our elders start transitioning to the spiritual realm and becoming more and more of our angels, it is it's not easy to do, but can be done.
That is so true.
So I want to thank you for coming and spending
Thank
this
you.
time with us.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you for watching this show about life choices. And join us again. This is education in our community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.